Okay, good morning everyone. Welcome to another Year 11 free maths lesson from Edexcel. Today's lesson we're going to be focusing on collecting data and cumulative frequency, and it's going to be a real focus that's really relevant at the moment. It's going to be around a lot to do with screen time and how much time you spend in front of a screen. So just let me go through the procedures as always. My name's Mr. Smart for those of you first time that you're joining us, and I'll be doing today's lesson. And basically I'm a maths teacher that wants to try and make things relevant and real, all while still trying to give you the skills that you need for your exams and beyond. And we will be getting to an exam question by the end of the session today, and a pretty standard cumulative frequency type exam question we'll be tackling today. Please make sure you have a pen, a pencil, some paper and a calculator to hand, just in case you need them, and we'll get going. So how does it work? Anything in blue is basically something for you to have a go at. So for instance, in this example here, work out the modal class in the table below. Okay, anything with a purple background is something a little bit harder, and anything with a yellow box written covered with answer is a solution. So for instance here I'm saying work out the modal class. Okay, and you can see here 7 is in the class 181 to 240 minutes. So the answer would be the modal class is 181 to 240 minutes, and that was hidden under that yellow box. So that's where we're at. That's how it's going to work. And what we're going to do is, there's a couple of things in blue here. Okay, how long do you spend in front of a screen daily? And we're going to try and work on what is the truth regarding the amount of time Year 11s in the UK spend in front of screens. And in your mind, you know, I'm asking you to answer how long you spend in front of a screen daily, but I want you to also think, how long do you think all of your friends the same age, or the other Year 11s, how long do you think they spend on average in front of a screen? Okay, just 1 minute on that. And I think for me, I can tell you now that the screen time that I spent before the lockdown and the screen time that I spend after the lockdown has changed massively. So probably I was on average 5 hours a day, Monday to Friday, in front of a screen. After the lockdown, that's probably closer to 10 hours a day. At weekends, a lot less. And that might be the same for you. You might spend more at weekends, or it might be the other way around. It might be spend more during the week and less at weekends. I don't know. But how would you go around collecting data on this, though? How would you go around collecting data on this? Okay, so now you've had a chance to think about how long you spend in front of a screen daily. It's interesting. Do you think you spend more or less than most people your age? Start thinking that way. So if you did want to find out more time about Year 11s all over the country and how much time they spend in front of a screen, what sort of questions would you actually ask? So I'd like you to have a think. There's no right or wrong answer here as such, but there are, what we could say, there are questions that are well put together and questions that are a little bit too ambiguous. So we need to think about what would make a good question and what would make a bad question. But what sort of questions would you ask? I'll just give you a minute or so to have a little think about that. You can see in the bottom left hand corner as well, I've actually picked out an article that I was reading, which is that fewer than 10% of UK teenagers meet exercise and screen time guidelines, and that's from a study, and I think it was UCL that did that study, University College London, and that was pre-lockdown. So it'd be interesting to see if that 10% has gone up or down since obviously we've had all the issues with coronavirus and being in lockdown. So some of your questions might be, how much time did you spend before lockdown? How much time did you spend after lockdown? So there's all these little things you can be thinking about when you're thinking about these questions. Okay, so what's wrong with this question? If I just say to you, how much time do you spend on your phone? The first thing I'm thinking, well, do you mean a day? Do you mean per week? Do you mean per month? What's your time frame? So lots of times you have to be careful with your question that there's actually a specific time frame. So would this be a better question? How much time do you spend in front of a screen daily? I think that is a better question, but does watching TV count as screen time? Yes or no? I think different people will define screen time in different ways. So this is something I found when I actually did this with lots of students in all different schools, is most people assumed screen time was to do with how long they was on their phone, not actually how much time they spend in front of the TV or watching YouTube or on a tablet. They thought these things were different. So I think the questions have to be very specific, and I think you need to think about that if you was collecting data on this specific topic. Right, so what we're going to do is we're going to actually look at some information that I actually collected. This is real data from the school. I haven't included the school's name because I haven't got permission, but this is real data in the sense that this has come from teenagers, okay? And I've done it screen time per day in minutes. Okay, I've used minutes, and you'll see here I've gone 0 to 60 and then 61 to 120. I haven't overlapped. If you had 60.5 minutes, I'd expect you to round. If it was in seconds, I'd expect you to convert it into minutes and then round. So anyone thinking, well, what happens if you get that scenario? I'd expect you to round. So just to clear that one up. And once you've got this information, what can you do with it? Well, that's the key thing, isn't it? What would you want to find out, though? What would you actually want to find out from this information? Why did I ask the students this question? Well, one of the key things I wanted to find out was basically how much time they were spending in front of their screens and look for trends. And that's what I did. But I would like you to think about, what do you think, how do you think this data would change during lockdown? And do you think there is such a thing as too much screen time? And the reason I'm asking that is if you're on the screen a lot during the day, if you spend a lot of time in front of a screen, do you sleep better or worse? Okay? Does it affect anything else if you spend too much time in front of a computer on your Xbox or on your phone? Does it affect anything else in your life? Or do you not think about it? I don't know, but just would like you to think about that for a minute or so before we actually get into the maths. Okay, so we're going to put it into a cumulative frequency curve. And the reason we're going to do that is it's actually a lot easier to find certain things if we do it that way than it is to do it from a table, in a nutshell. And by the end of today's lesson, you'll see where it really can be helpful. Okay. So what I've done is, and I'm very careful here because this is often something that happens in class. If you look at this information on the first table, the top table, 0 to 60, the frequency, that means 4 people had a screen time of somewhere between 0 to 60 minutes. The second class interval, 61 to 120 minutes, there were 3 people. So the frequency means the number of people in this case. Okay, and the next one, I've put cumulative frequency, but what you'll notice here, and I'll actually do this in real time so you can see, because I think this is something that a lot of students forget about. If you look here, we've got 0 to 60, and here it matches 0 to 60. Then if you look at the next interval, you've got 61 to 120, and here we haven't got 61 to 120, we've got 0 to 120. So if you think about it, between 0 and 120, we have 4 and 3. So we add those together, and that's what's happened here. If you look at what's actually happened, we've done 4 add 3 because this class interval isn't 61 to 120, it's 0 to 120. So anything between 0 to 120 is what we're interested in for the cumulative frequency. Okay, so that's what I'm trying to get across there, and I'm sure you've all done cumulative frequency before. Okay, and you can see there now that I've done every single number and added them through to get to 30 at the bottom there, and there's 30 people in the class, so that makes sense. I didn't tell you that anywhere, but you should have got 30. So 5 add 4 add 3 gives me 12, and so on, and it works through. So once I've got that information, how do I then put that into a cumulative frequency curve? Well, I've prepared this one, but I'm just going to talk through the key things. And what I'm trying to do here is I'm going to show you, I've got this upper boundary here, and I've got the cumulative frequency 4. So if you look, 60 along and 4, you can see I've already made the points here to save me time, but it's there. If we then look at the next upper boundary, we've got 120, 7, and I've put that on there. And what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to plot the curve in real time. And you can never do this. I mean, I find this hard on paper, let alone on a tablet. But I'm going to try. See me sketching that in real time here. It's very difficult even on an interactive whiteboard to see that I've just gone a little bit awry. So let me just pick it up from there, just see if I can pick that off a little bit better. And there we go. You can see, so that's my cumulative frequency curve. So now I've done that, what's the use? Why have I done it? Okay, well the reason is I'm going to find estimates for my median, my lower quartile, my upper quartile. And what do these really mean? It means the middle value, the lower quartile, and the upper quartile. And basically we know that 25% of people are between 0 and the lower quartile, 25% of people between the lower quartile and the median, and so on. So we can find things out quite quickly. And we can use it to ask specific questions as well, which again we'll get to later on in the session. But what I'm asking you to think about now, this survey, which I actually did with students, was completed before the lockdown. How do you think the lockdown would affect the curve below? Okay, keep that in your mind because you're actually going to investigate that as we go through the lesson. Okay, I've got my curve. This is one I actually did earlier just in case I had any problems with the technology. I'm now going to do, in real time, try to show you how I'm going to work out the median and the quartiles. I may only do the median just because of time, but I'm going to show you. So I'm thinking, I know I've got 30 values, and I'm thinking, oh, the median is halfway, middle, so half of 30 is 15. So I'm going to find 15 on my cumulative frequency. That's going to be, I've got my axis here, it's going up in twos, 12, 14, so 15 is going to be halfway here. And I'm actually going to draw a line horizontal here. I'll do it in red as well. Let's make sure I keep the colours consistent. And I've gone across there. Okay, I'm actually going to bring out another ruler now. And I'm going to turn it, I'm going to rotate it quickly. And I'm going to use this to go down. It's actually easy to have two rulers when you're using Active Studio Open. It makes it quicker. So, and I'm going to go do a line going straight down there. Okay, again, let's make sure that's in red pen. Okay, so I just need to go down a bit further. But you can see here what's happened. That's probably just a little bit off. I had it about on 200 before. But you can see here what I've done. I've gone along at the halfway point, which is 15, to where it meets the curve, and then I've drawn a line straight down. And I then read off my screen time here at 180. This is going up in 20s, 200, 222. So it'll be 200 minutes will be the estimate for my median. And likewise, if I was going to do the same for the lower quartile, I'd take a quarter of 30, and a quarter of 30 would be 7.5. So I've got 7, 7.5 here. Okay, and again in red, I'd go along to where it meets, and then I'd go down. I'll try to go down with this ruler quickly. And you can see that's roughly where it's going to cut the screen time. So I'd say 125 minutes as an estimate for the lower quartile. And that skill there is something that it will always come up. It will always come up in an exam somewhere. And a lot of the mistakes we see are not using the upper boundary, which we've already spoken about, and also just not being accurate enough with the drawing and just being a little bit off with your estimate. And the estimate, you'll be given a range of answers to get the marks. So as long as your answer is within a range, you will still score those marks. Let's just look at a finished off version that you can have a look at here that I've actually done earlier. And I've put the upper quartile on here as well. Just give it these rulers quickly. So they're out your way. Let's just close that one as well. And the estimate of the median is 200 minutes, which we already did. Estimate of the lower quartile, which we did in real time, was 125 minutes. And the estimate of the upper quartile was 275 minutes. And I asked you as well to think about what the effect of the lockdown would have on this curve. So I want you to hold that thought, and I want you to construct the cumulative frequency table for the above data. This is a post-lockdown survey of screen time for the same group of pupils, and this isn't real. I have made this up because I haven't had access to be able to actually get this information, but I thought it would be an interesting exercise to do. So have a little look that calculate the cumulative frequency. I'll give you a couple of minutes. Thank you. Okay, I'm sure you've all done that quite quickly. I've just put it up here so you can see that the cumulative frequency is there. That's the cumulative frequency column, all calculated there. So you've got 0, 2, 6, 11, 17, 23, 25, 27, 29 and 30. And you can see I've put the 0 to 60, 0 to 120 and so on there. What I would say here is because I've made up the data for this second part, the post-lockdown, I think there's a chance some people may be spending more than 10 hours on their phones or in front of screens. In fact, I'd say there's probably a few people. So you could argue that I needed to extend that. But it's just to give you the idea of how the data can move between pre-lockdown and post-lockdown. And when I originally did this suite of lessons, we didn't know what was going to happen, what was ahead of us. We was comparing schools rather than pre and post-lockdown. I just thought it'd be more relevant to do this example. So you can see here, I've actually put the points for the purple line, plotted those on. I've left the ones for the red on as well, which was the previous example that I just did, which was pre-lockdown. And then I've put the curves on. Okay, so the curve, you can see. Now, I must admit, I think a lot of people intuitively would think the steeper the gradient, the higher the screen time per day. But if you look at what's actually happened here, is it's moved to the right-hand side of the red curve. And if you think about it, that makes perfect sense because people are spending more time on their phone post-lockdown than they were before the lockdown, and that's what this graph is showing. But was that what you was expecting? And that's what I'm asking you to think about in the previous question. Okay, so what I'd like you to do for a couple of minutes is, can you work out estimates of the median and quartiles like I showed you a couple of minutes ago for the purple line though, not for the red line, for the purple line below. I'll give you 2 minutes, say, to have a look at that. I know you might be able to have to do it off the screen, it might be a bit tricky, but have a go anyway, just so you get the feel of it. Okay, so let's have a quick look. And I've put the lines on this time. I haven't plotted them in real time, just to save time and for the lesson. I don't want to do them all. But you can see here, let's just quickly look at the median. Again, half of 30 is 15, so I've done a line along at 15 and gone down, and that's given me an estimate of the median of that line. Yeah, 280, 240, 260, 280. Yep, just checking my answers as I go. 7.5, that purple line going across there, and you know, you probably say 200 minutes, maybe just over 200 minutes looking at that line, but I've gone with 200 minutes as it's an estimate. And upper quartile 22.5, horizontal line going across there, and then going down your 360 minutes. And what's interesting about that is if we compare, and I've just put this here, very summarised it just very basically. Pre-lockdown, the estimate of the median was 200 minutes. Post-lockdown, it was 280 minutes. Pre-lockdown, the estimate of the lower quartile was 125 minutes. Post-lockdown, estimate of lower quartile was 200 minutes. And estimate of upper quartile, pre-lockdown, was 275 minutes. And estimate of upper quartile, post-lockdown, was 260 minutes. So what's this telling us? Would you say, what's the data suggesting here? Is it suggesting people spend a lot more time on screens? It would suggest that, because think about what median, why do we work out the median in the quartiles? Okay, well, we'll do a lot more on that in the next session, next week. But basically, if you work out the interquartile range, which is something we're going to be doing next session, what you can say is 50% of the data is going to be between the upper quartile and the lower quartile. So we can use this information to make some really interesting and form some interesting questions and find some interesting answers to things. One of the things I'd want to know is, as a subsequent question, is as the screen time is increasing, is the quality of sleep that everyone's getting going down? Because I know, for instance, I think if I've been on a screen a lot all day, my sleep won't be as good that night, and then that affects the next day and rolls forward. And I think that's something that we don't really think about enough. Okay, so moving forward onto the next bit, I want you to now have a think about, this is data for a different school, okay, in London. This was a school in London. Actually, the other data was for a school in Birmingham. Can you work out the cumulative frequency and then plot the cumulative frequency curve? Now, I know you'll have to do that on a piece of paper, and you may need to just quickly work out your axes. Can you also estimate the median and quartiles for this school? And can you estimate the number of people? This is in purple because it's slightly trickier. You need to think about it. Can you estimate the number of people spending 5 or more hours in front of a screen? Okay, based on this information. And I've got to give you a bit of time on this, because it's not even that difficult, but it takes time to construct the chart and your graph and etc. So I'll give you 6 minutes, 7 minutes. I want to try and do the exam question as well, so I'll give you 6 or 7 minutes, folks. Okay, I'm sure most of you have done the cumulative frequency already, so I'll just reveal that. There was actually 32 people in this class, so if you should have got 2, 4, 5, 13, 20, 24, 27, 29, 31, and then 32. And as you can see, I've put all the information in there. Okay, I know you'll do it differently and you'll take a shortcut. I'm just trying to make the point that so that mistake doesn't happen, that misconception doesn't happen when you go through it yourself. And just to give you a visual, I have got the cumulative frequency there, so I'll leave this slide up now. I know I'm still going to give you the time, don't worry, you haven't lost anything. Here is the table with the cumulative frequency there, and you can see I've put the axes up as well, and this might help you as well get through it. Now you will notice there's a little bit of a jump here, but that's to be expected, because if you look at the value, it goes from 5 to 13 quite quickly. Okay, so I will leave you to it, and I'll give you that extra time that I promised. Okay, now I'm just going to move it along again, just one slide. This is an attempt I had at drawing the curve earlier, but it might just give you an idea. And then obviously from once you have this curve, then you can have a go at estimating the median in the upper and lower quartile from that. So just moving it along, I will still give you the extra minute or two that you need if you need to finish it off. Okay, so let's take a look at these answers, these solutions. Take a while. Normally, in the exam questions you get pre-prepared axes as well, so obviously that saves you time. But what I want to go through is I want to just go through them quickly, and I want to particularly go through the one in purple, which is the estimate for 5 hours or more equals 12 people. That's the one I specifically want to go over. And you can see here the median half of 32 is 16, so in some ways this one's actually easier to do than the previous one. You draw your horizontal line, then you go down vertically and you get your estimate, which is 260 minutes. You go along at 8, because 32 divided by 4 is 8, so you go along at 8 and then go down for your lower quartile, and that gives you an estimate of 205 minutes is what I've said. It's not 200, it's not halfway, it's not 210. I would say, yeah, about a quarter of the way along there. 205 is what I was saying there. The upper quartile was 360 minutes. And then the other question was work out the number of people that were 5 hours or more in front of a screen. So what I did was 5 times 60, because I need it in minutes. 5 times 60 is 300 minutes. So I focused on this 300 minutes here. I focused on the 300 minutes, and I've drawn a line straight up to where it meets my curve, and it meets here. You can clearly see it meets here. And then I've gone along horizontally, and I've gone horizontally. It's worked out quite nice because it's bang on 20, but a lot of students would answer 20 there, but it's asking for the number of people that are 5 hours or more. Okay, so what we know is everyone going above this point is either 300 minutes, 360 minutes, 420 minutes, and so on, 480, 540, 600, etc. So these people here. But there are 32 people in total in this class, and you know that because that's the total there. So we need to do 32 subtract 20 to give us an estimate for 5 hours or more is 12 people. Okay, and that is a common exam type question. That's one of the key learning objectives I wanted to get across today. So, and if we just go back really quickly here to our original, if we think about it, if we go here downwards, that should be approximately 12, because we're saying 300 minutes more. 4 add 3 is 7, 7 add 2 is 9, 9 add 2 is 11, 11 add 1. That does all come out to be 12. So our answer is plausible, and I've checked that it's plausible by going back to the original data. And that's something that's always useful to sort of have up your sleeve, is to go back and check to see if you're on the right track. So what I'd like to do now is to actually link this to an exam question. Okay, I haven't been able to fit loads of exam questions on, but I'd like you to have a go at this one. Obviously, I know plotting the cumulative frequency graph may not be easy, because you may have to just quickly sketch the axes yourselves. So if we say give you 5 minutes to have a go, 5 or 6 minutes, and then I'll go through it before we finish for today. All right, but I wanted to get to an exam question where you'd actually get a chance to actually have a go. Okay, I'm just going to fill in some of these answers as you go. Keep working. I'm just going to put them in. You can check to see if you're correct. The first thing I'd say is that it tells you in the question that there's 60 teachers here. So I'm expecting my answer to come out to be 60. I'm going to do the cumulative frequency quickly. So I've got 12. Then I'm going to do 12 add 15, which is 27, which goes there. 27 add 18, which would be 45. 45 add 12, which is 57. 57 add 3, which is 60. And the fact that they match is reassuring. And then it's talking about, on the grid opposite, draw a cumulative frequency graph for this information. So I'm going to quickly do that now. So I'm going to look at the upper boundary, which is 30 and 12. 40 and 27. 50 and 45. 60, 57. 70, 60. Okay, and it's difficult on these tablets, but it's probably just as difficult for you on the piece of paper, but I'm trying to get that reasonably accurate. And that's my curve there. Once I've got that in, I can use it to plot some other information. What's it asking me for? Use your cumulative frequency graph to find an estimate for the median age. Okay, so half of 60 is 30. And I'm gonna have to start going through because I've only got 3 minutes left. It's gone so quick. So again, I can get my tools out quickly. Use the ruler 30. Try and do this as accurately as I can in real time. Go along to where the curve is. As you saw earlier, it's actually easier for me to bring out another ruler and just rotate it slightly. It really is actually easier to do it this way. Well, normally I say that. There we go. Try and get that as accurate as possible again. Going down now. And we should be able to read off an estimate of our median age now, and I would say 41, 42, 43. Bear in mind you would get a range here. You know, you wouldn't have to get it spot on. You may get a range. You may get a range of answers, and you'd be given the mark for any of those. Okay, and then it says use your cumulative frequency graph to find an estimate. Use your cumulative frequency graph to find an estimate for the number of teachers older than 55 years. So I'm going to plot that there. I'm going to draw a line up to where it meets, and then I'm going to go across. Try and do it there. Just trying to be as accurate as I can. It's not always easy with this system because it's hard to be bang on. There we go. That looks a bit better. And go across there. And what's my estimate there? I'd say 52. Okay, but hang on, older than 55 years. So I've almost need to go back. That's 52, but I need to do 60 older than 55 years. So I need to do 60 take away the 52. So that gives me 8 teachers are older than 55 years. Now, why have I done that? 60 teachers. Okay. And we got 52 from that. 60 subtract 52 gives me 8. Okay. And that's basically that exam question gone through there. So I've worked that one through in real time. Hopefully that helps for future. If you didn't understand it beforehand, hopefully that's helped to clarify how you do cumulative frequency. Next time we're going to actually look at how we use this data more. So comparing the data, box plots, making this, using data in a much more sort of analytical way. We've got the median, we've got the lower quartile, we've got the upper quartile. What do we actually do with that when we're comparing sets of data, different sets of data? That's what we're going to look at next week. Just to quickly say, we did cover these things in the session today. Decide what data to collect and what analysis is needed. And we use cumulative frequency graphs because it's actually easier to do it from the graph than it is from the tables. And that's why one of the reasons why cumulative frequency graphs are so useful. And then we've estimated frequency greater less than given value. That's literally just did that in the last bit of the exam question. And then finding the median and quartile values and interquartile range. Well, interquartile range we'll do a lot more on in the next session. But anyway, I hope you have a good day enjoying the sun, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your half term. Take care, folks, and hopefully see you next time. Cheers.